Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. And today we have a new post on the website at sachartermoms.com. And the authors are here. So let me introduce our guests. Holly Glasgow and Andrew Pandolfi are the co-founders of Elite Mentors San Antonio. And the guest blog post is about executive function and how coaches can help, especially with middle school and high school students. So this is a very timely subject for back to school. And some of us may already be realizing we don't know what's in that backpack or in that folder. And that's what Holly and Andrew are here to talk to us about. So thank you so much for the guest blog post. And thank you for coming on Charter Moms Chats to have a conversation with me about executive function.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I'm Holly Glasgow. I am an educator and an administrator. Currently, my role is as an assistant principal at Johnson High School here in NEISD, and it has been a learning experience. So I'm all about lifelong learning and trying new things. I've been a public school teacher. I've been a private school teacher and administrator, and I've been a middle school teacher and a high school teacher. So I've kind of run that secondary educational gamut, and at every level I've learned something new. And one of the things that I've been the most passionate about in the last couple of years is helping students with those executive function skills that we'll talk about in just a minute.
And I'm
Andrew, do you want to tell us about your background? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Pandolfi. So my background is a little bit different. I have substitute taught over the years, but for the past 24 years, I have been a bivocational youth pastor and pastor of students. And as of now, I'm in a different job field, but this area and subject is very dear to my heart. And with those 24 years of experience, I've seen the all spectrum of youth. I've seen that how the technology has just blossomed over the last 20 years or so, and how kids 20 years ago, a lot of these things that we're using today, it would have been very difficult to be doing ministry at that time because they had a little bit different focus. So, and that's why we're here. We're here to help and help students in their direction in their education, and also help their parents understand them a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to ask, I'll throw this question out to both of y'all. So I remember the first time I heard the term executive function, I was like, well, does that mean like making org charts in PowerPoint or like doing performance eval, like what bosses do? Is that what that is? And like, so no, that's not what it is. So, but can y'all explain for folks, who aren't familiar, like what does it cover when you talk about executive function skills?
Yeah. Executive function skills it's just a big fancy term for how our brain organizes our life. Executive function skills fall under the umbrella of planning, organizing, task initiation. How do you think about your thinking? If you make a mistake or stumble a little bit, how do you get yourself back on track and persevere through some challenges? It's a lot of the self-control and attention to detail that we all use, and most people use it kind of just subconsciously. It's just what we do. When you think about what you're going to cook for dinner, that's using executive function. One of a popular meme that's been going around lately is the mom math. Okay, we have to be at soccer practice at 7, so I have to cook dinner by 6, which means I have to pick kids up and you're backtracking your schedule in your day. It's all of those things. It's, you see some kids who are able to organize their backpack and they have their trapper keeper with all the dividers and they're hyper organized and they know where everything is. And then you have some other kids whose backpack is, the pit of despair. And, yesterday's homework assignment is covered in Cheeto dust and chocolate milk, so executive function skills are those skills that our brain uses to order our lives. And kids who struggle with that tend to have trouble in school. People who are neurodivergent often have trouble with executive function skills, particularly kids with ADHD. they really will struggle with these executive function skills. So, executive function sounds big and fancy and sometimes a little daunting, but when you break it down, that's the gist of it.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. I think sometimes if I hope that people are like, "Oh, that's what that's called," and then now they know, like what that term is, right? Because it's really useful. It covers really important stuff. And
Yeah.
there are like one thing you talk about in the blog post is what are some signs that a student may be struggling, and that executive function might be that missing piece. So what are some of those like things that like a parent or a teacher could look for in a student that's a sign that maybe executive function that gap might be the problem.
Take it, Andrew.
So there's a spectrum, and I use that term, not in a clinical way, but like Holly said, you have students that are very hyper organized. You would even call them like the train type person. That they're on the track, and when they are missing something and they have to get off the track, they don't like to get off the track. But then you have other students that are on the other side of the spectrum, like she said, like they're very disorganized. They're like the planes. It's like planes can go in any direction at any time, as long as you give them enough steering and they have the leeway. And so, we're looking at this. And again, one of the first times I ever saw this was firsthand in second grade. There was one of my friends, he just jam packed, we had tables and he had all his papers were jam packed in there. And every day he needed to borrow two things, a piece of paper and a pencil. And every day we couldn't figure out like what happened to the pencil the day before, but it would be gone. And, that was second grade. But if you think about it in life, and especially where these kids are in middle school and high school, there's a lot of pressure on them in not just in the classroom, but their extras, like Holly was saying before, like the mom saying, "Hey, we got soccer practice, we got band practice, we got football practice." We have all these things, and we're trying to organize multiple people. And so, what we're looking at is we're trying to find, not. I mean, you're on the spectrum. Everybody is on that spectrum. You could have piles, of stuff that everything that's in that pile. Other people look at that and say, that's so disorganized. You're like, no, I know exactly what's in there. I'm of that sort. But you have other students that might, be on anything. And what we're there to do is we're there to almost like a Mr. Miyagi, if anybody knows anything about the Karate Kid. He had Daniel doing exercises to prepare him for the tournament to fight Johnny. Okay, that's just my little analogy. But he had no idea as he's washing the car and he's struggling what Mr. Miyagi was doing. He just thought he was doing chores. Well, in the same way, Holly and I, what we're doing is we're going to sit down with that student and we're going to give them, certain, helpful, tools that are going to unlock things so that they can see it in a different way. Because again, teachers today, they might not have the time or the discipline to help a student in that area. And just like what somebody might be coming to you for a tutoring, like that they're struggling in math, we're not going to be your tutors. We can help in a certain area, but ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to unlock the skills so they can, to think about things in a different way, and that they can use that as they are prepping themselves, not just for this year, but for years to come. And maybe it'll be something helpful that as they're adults, that they're going to look back on and go, you know what, that's whenever things changed in my life.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll see kids with a string of missing assignments. I remember last year, my own son, who was an 8th grader, had, I think at one point, 13 missing assignments. He just hadn't turned things in. And so we had to create a plan for that. And there's no secret that there's a correlation between not getting work turned in, forgetting things, losing things that causes oftentimes low grades. So the string of missing assignments, the low grades, the kind of disorganization, which way am I going, time blindness, all of those things are big signs that maybe somebody needs a little bit of support in that executive function area. And like Andrew said, it could be anybody from those super high functioning kids who are just stimulated, overprogrammed, and need help with that time management. And it may be those kids that need help with that task initiation, because when they get piled on, they oftentimes get overwhelmed and shut down. And we're here to help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Andrew made a good point I wanted to circle back to, which is that executive function coaching is not the same thing as tutoring, right?
Right.
That tutoring might be if like a student is struggling in a particular subject like algebra and they go to their math teacher or they go to an outside math tutor and they work on particular skills in algebra. What y'all are talking about is something that's independent of the
Exactly.
academic subject, and it can apply even to extracurriculars or life skills like cooking or chores, right?
Sure.
And,
You
oh,
know,
go ahead.
we are I am an educator. Andrew has that ministry mentoring background, and we might be helping you work through the missing assignments that you have in a particular class. I'm a history teacher by trade and an English teacher by trade. So I might be able to help you organize an essay, but I'm not tutoring a student in a particular history or math concept. We would recommend other avenues for support for that if that's what a student or a parent is looking for their child. When we are working with the student, we're talking about these skills through the vehicle of maybe an assignment or a communication skill with a particular teacher that maybe they're having some trouble. Maybe they've got those 13 missing assignments and they don't know even know how to approach their teacher. We're going to work through those things. If you need some algebra tutoring, not your gal right here. That's not what I can do, but I can find you people who can. So it's part of that. We want to be part of that support network for any family that needs it.
Yeah. Andrew, did you want to add something about like what coaching is? I heard you pipe up.
Well, I was just saying, like, in the same way what Holly was, and I'll kind of speak to this, is that just like you go to see your primary care physician, your PCP, if you come in with a broken arm, he's going to send you to an orthopedic. You're going to need a referral. You're going to go to a different specialty doctor. So in this, I would look at this as like a toolbox for not just parents and for other people, but you want to be able to use, if you needed to hammer a nail, it wouldn't be good with a screwdriver. You need a hammer. That's the whole point of having a hammer, is it hammers, nails. If, it's a screw and you hammer the screw, it's not going to go in the same way with a nail. So the way that Holly and I, we've kind of shared with each other is that, you have specialists that are tutors in different subjects. You have counselors that will go deeper into a different type of need that someone might have, and all these are good. And what we do is we're kind of like in that middle ground, is that we're coming through between the tutor, the parent, the teacher, the counselor, and we're kind of giving that encouragement and that attention to some of the details and asking the questions. And we're not there with an agenda other than to want them to be successful. So the bottom line is that at the end of this, we want them to leave with something better than what they started with. And if that needs to be encouragement, if that needs to be, hey, I need to slow down a little bit, or I need to, I'm killing myself doing like 3 sports and I'm not getting home until 11 o'clock at night, and I still have 3 hours worth of homework, and I have to get up at 6 o'clock because I have to be at school for band practice. I've seen kids operate this way, and whenever they fall off, it's devastating because their whole world just got rocked. And the way I describe it to people, and Holly and I, we talk about this a lot, is we juggle everything that we have. If you think about the things you juggle in life, we juggle the things that are most important. I call them like glass. They're the glass balls. And the things that you look at as like super important, those are going to be glass, and you're having to juggle those and keep those in the air. But what are the balls that can drop, that are made out of rubber, that if they fall, that you're going to be able to still pick them up and they're not going to be broken? And what happens with kids is, and this is the coaching side of things, is that they get so discouraged, or they get so in their own mind that all of a sudden you see everything drop, and then the parent goes, "We were doing so well, everything we were on this track," and then all of a sudden they got a different teacher, or their friends dropped them, or their friends moved away, or they went to a different school, and now everything is chaos. And what we do is we try to minimize the hurt and say, okay, what are those things that are most important, and
Mhm.
what are the things that we can let go of and pick it back up later. And sometimes for kids, they just need to hear someone just to share that with them and unlock those things for them so that they can express themselves. And then the parents will look at this and go, okay, now I know how to communicate with my child a little bit differently. This is
Mhm.
what I know that they need, you know? So,
And
yeah.
when you look at that list of executive function skills, there's the things like planning and organization, and we'll, if a student struggles there, we'll be talking about um, calendaring. Are you a paper calendar person or a digital calendar person? What's going to work best for you? And some of that's a little trial and error, but there's also those kind of softer skills like Andrew was just mentioning. Perseverance and flexibility and grit are all part of that executive function list, um, and it's creating that relationship with the student and with their families to find out what is it? Is it just that my backpack is a mess, and if I get that straightened out, I'm fine? Or is your backpack a mess because there's some other underlying cause? And so executive function really falls, really covers a whole umbrella of of topics, and some teachers might be good at some of them, and there are some teachers who are good at all of them, but and we all know in our world of hyper testing and hyper fast-paced education, sometimes those SEL skills, social emotional learning skills and executive function skills, kind of get left by the wayside.
Yeah. So actually, we got a very on point comment from a viewer. So let me put this up on screen. So Darlene asks, she says, my son struggles a lot with executive function. One of the biggest struggles is organizing schoolwork, note taking, forgetting homework assignments. And she says her son is a middle schooler. So I'm putting you guys on the spot, but do you have any tips about the specifically organizing schoolwork, note taking, forgetting homework assignments? Those sound like very typical problems.
Yes, very typical. When I was a middle school administrator at both a private and my middle school experience has mostly been in the private school setting, and we were able to give a little bit more attention to some of those students. But I had a particular a student named Johnny who was, I mean, that's literally his name, and he just could not keep his world together. And so we really worked on starting with lists and prioritizing, and we scheduled a weekly come to my office. We're going to spend 10 minutes organizing your backpack. And so your commenter need systems. Sometimes we've got those kids who can just inherently do it, and there's others who just need the system. And the system takes some trial and error, and that's what we can help work through. um, and and it's maybe having the Sunday night organization. It's having the daily, okay, we know that reading homework comes home on Tuesday, or math homework comes on Wednesday, or maybe it all comes at once depending on where they go to school. And how do we sit down and make that list and prioritize, and then put things in their folders? And a fun game to play is, so what color is your history folder? What color represents history for you? What color represents math? And a lot of people go, oh, red, because it's just so good. And so it's getting them to kind of associate, a color, an anchor point to maybe a particular subject, so that when they get that assignment, it goes green, social studies in the folder, in the backpack. And so it's just a constant trial and error of the system that's going to make that student be the most successful. And we spent time during the school day. And I know sometimes in a private school we have a little bit more of a luxury, but with some of the public school kids, that might be a little bit more on the parents to do, where, okay, we're coming home, we're dumping out this backpack. We're looking through things that I've got to sign as the mom, especially here at the beginning of the school year. There's documents and forms. And then, okay, where is that homework piece? And then going from there.
And
Yeah.
we do. I mean, this is for middle school and high school students. So, from sixth grade, on to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade are fundamental, because what's going on in their brains is they're going from a true child mentality of being in fifth grade and kind of ruling the school, to all of a sudden, their hormones are changing. They're having growth spurts. Voices might get deeper, and so that sixth, seventh, and eighth grade are really important as they are entering into high school. So if we can get them early enough to kind of give them some of the basic skills, and you have those check-ins. I love what Holly said about having the backpack check-in, to say, okay, let's look at your backpack right now, let's make it a game, something to where that they, like I said, they're doing this, we're organizing it. And I understand for the parent's going to look at it and go, why can't you keep this organized? It's not that hard. We're as a parent, we say these things to our kids all the time. Coming from like the executive function, mentoring side, we're going to come beside that child and go, hey, you know what? Let's look at this. Okay. We might be able to even laugh at them and go, hey, man, this thing is like all torn up. And what is this? And kind of say, and kind of smile at them, versus a parent would be like, why did, what is this? Why did you have it this way? And so it's the way in which you deal with it. And again, parents are the front lines in everything. Your child better than we do. We're not coming in to say, hey, we know more about parenting or more about your child. Even though I have kids right now, and I have two in college and one in middle school, I look at this and say, hey, across the board, at that age, they need people to come beside them and to really mentor them, and to show them that encouragement, that perseverance, and to walk with them through some of these journeys, these struggles, because who's going to do it for them? And again, I love our teachers. Private school, I've been there. I started in a private school, and I struggled to read, not because I had a disability, but I struggled because in the early 1980s, there was something that came out that says we're going to go from phonetics to sight words. And I could spell like nobody's business, but I could not read what I just wrote. I didn't know. I just knew I could memorize it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I struggled as I read. And it wasn't until seventh grade that I was actually in a specialty class. And I thought I was like, oh man, I'm must be, broken or something. And the teacher came alongside us and said, start reading the newspaper, start reading the sports page. It's on an eighth grade level. By the end of the year, I went from a second grade reading level to an 11th grade reading level on my testing. And that was in 1 year. That was someone coming beside me saying, hey, you got the tools. Let me just help you unlock this part. And I'm saying, like, if that's a teacher, what could really happen if you have someone that is passionate with students to say, hey, we want to see you succeed, because I'm a testament to that. And see people succeed. We're not looking at this and going, hey, how can we, just get people to sign up for something? We're looking at this and saying, hey, there's going to be another person that's going to be successful because of what we're doing. And, there are so many different things out there. Like I said, the tutoring side, the counseling side. And if it's bigger than our bubble, we're going to let that parent know right away and say, hey, this is outside of our scope. And we want you to be able to get them whatever they need. And if it's that counseling side, get the counseling. If it's tutoring, get the tutoring.
For sure.
Yeah, Andrew, you made a really good point that I want. This is me speaking to the parents audience. Like, there's no shame in asking for help. That sometimes it really helps, even if it's kind of the same message, but if it comes from a different source. And I think especially as kids leave that elementary grade, get into middle school, high school, they need more other adult influences in their life, not just their parents, right? So, and it can come from teaching, it could come from ministry, it could come from extended family, but it can also come from experts who are coming in did model a particular skill that, maybe the student wasn't able to pick up on their own. And when the parent tries to introduce that skill, it's creating a power struggle. So it's like, get the parent out of the situation, stop the power struggle, and have it come from a different tone and a different place, a different source of
Well, and
expertise.
we want to help parents preserve their relationship with their kid. I
Yes.
mean, as parents, we all have to pick our battles, and here I am, an administrator and this executive function, embarking on this new venture with our company, and it's sort of the cobbler's children have no shoes. My son doesn't always like to listen to what I have to say. He's like, yeah, mom, whatever. But he'll talk to Andrew, or he'll talk to another friend of ours, and they'll say very similar things, and he's like, oh, that I you're right, and it's revolutionary. So it's part of that coming alongside and mentoring, and just being a part of that support system to help that student be the most successful they can be in all aspects, not just in school, but in their extracurriculars and their communication with adults. With high school kids, we want to be able to help transition them on into college. So it's really kind of an all-encompassing concept.
Yeah. Well, so Holly, I appreciated you sharing the story about the student that you had mentored at the private school, and like, having, recurring meetings and check-ins and stuff. I was wondering, would each of y'all share, like, can you think of any other, like, kind of real life stories? You can change the names, but like, real life stories that, that might give, parents listening, like, a sense of hope of like, okay, here was a situation and we were able to change the circumstances.
Yeah. Well, the student that I was just mentioning, his mom and I had some conferences. When I first came in, the principal that was helping said, "Oh, would you help this? When I call, the mom doesn't want to even speak to me anymore. It's just so frustrating." And so I spoke to her and said, "Hey, I'm here to help. What can we do?" And we started game planning what we could do for him. And by the end of his 7th grade year, he was passing all of his classes, had very minimal, I wouldn't say it was, it wasn't a magic bullet, but he had very minimal missing assignments. And we were able to get on a rotation of, he knew where to go to get his missing work. He knew how to ask for that missing work. And he started to advocate for himself. And his mom at the end of the school year said, "Oh my gosh, this was the best semester we've had in years." So it can really be transformational for some of those kids to just, like I said, it's for some people, they're simple skills. Go ask your teacher what you're missing and where can you get another copy. But for some kids, they're intimidated. They don't know how to ask. He was busy. He couldn't talk to me. Well, persevere, go back. And so it's laying that foundation, and it took about a semester, but he was able to then keep going and carry those skills on into the next year.
Yeah.
There was a student, it was a few years back. His name was Zach, and Zach came in and he was on the spectrum. And it was interesting. He came into our group, our youth group, and our youth group was very loving and outgoing. I know some youth groups, it's very difficult to get involved, but I really made it a point that's like, you show up and, you're one of us. Like, it's just, you're just welcome with open arms. And Zach started coming and with his parents, and in the beginning, we kind of noticed, some things. And so, I'm trying to figure out like what unlocks this kid's brain. And he was very much into computers. He was very into science. Everything that we taught, everything we did was kind of extra. He was one of those kids that, I mean, any trip that we took, if you gave, I told his mom all the time, I was like, don't give him money, give it to one of our sponsors, because it's going to be gone. Not because he spent it, because he's going to lose it. Like he couldn't keep it. And so, we're walking beside him, during this journey, and, he's going through high school. And I decided, I was like, you know what, we're going to meet weekly, just he and I. So I'd go pick him up at a school, and then we would go to Chick-fil-A and just have like a little bit of time. The mom, was all on board. She was like, any time that you can devote to this guy, would be very helpful. And I would sit there and I would just listen to him. for the first 15 or 20 minutes, just to kind of get, some things. And again, it was very much that Miyagi type thing. So by the end of our conversation, he's working through stuff that he had no idea. And we were doing it little by little, to the point where whenever I had something else going on that particular week, I'd say, "Hey man, like I can't meet with you this week." It was almost devastating. Like, well, what do you mean? Like, I have to wait till next week? And I was like, "I'm so sorry, Zach. Like, yes, I something came up and I can't make it this week." But it all came out of, he came in one Wednesday night, and I asked him how school was, and he says, "Besides my teachers, I didn't talk to anybody that whole day." And I thought, I was like, okay, well, he's very kind of introverted. But I was like, okay, well, what's going on? And I probed a little more. I said, well, did you sit with your friends and eat at lunch? And he goes, "I eat by myself. No one talks to me." And in my heart broke for this kid, because he's so smart. He has so much to offer this world. And I asked his mom and dad, I said, "Do I have permission to go up and get on the list so I can have lunch with him at his school?" And they said yes. And so that's how it all started. And I would just sit with him and we would just talk. And it was 30 minutes. And he would look at us watching and be like, "Okay, Andrew, like, I'll see you later." And he would get up and just go. But then all of a sudden, being someone that was in his life like every single week, being consistent, just accepting him for who he is, it's like it made a difference to where now he's in college, he's thriving. And, sometimes I'll get a message from him and he'll just be like, "Hey man, just want to see how you're doing. I'm doing great." And there's a lot of things I think that, when we talked about, set him up for success today because of things that happened then. And I could have overlooked it. I could say, "You know what? You're not the popular kid. You're not the one that talks, my language. I don't really have anything in common with you." But I look at kids across the board in that way and say, how can we connect, and how can I help you? And how can you take some of the things that I've learned in my life and maybe miss those potholes? And how can we do better with, whatever it is? And that's where Holly and we come together and we're like, what? We have so much to offer our youth of today. Why not, take a chance and say, what? If it's one student, guess what? You're going to get that. If it's 2 students, you're going to get that. If it's 10 students, you're going to get that, because we all have something that we can offer in a positive way. And again, I mean, that's just one of the many stories over 24 years that I can look back at and go, what? It was a job well done. And it's not over. He's still, thriving, and he still has, questions sometimes, but we've opened that dialogue. He knows he can count on me. He knows he can call me up at any time and say, "Hey, Andrew, I have this issue. Help me through it."
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I appreciate both of y'all sharing stories, like Holly sharing about even in your own family and in schools that you've taught, and Andrew through your work with youth group. And I'm wondering, is there any okay, so before we close out, I want to make sure that we share like how folks can get in touch with you guys. Are there any kind of closing thoughts that you guys want to share about executive function and why coaching is a good approach?
Coaching is a great option for training up those students to be more successful. We are offering one-off sessions. Every consultation is free. A parent can call and ask us questions. They can shoot us an email, and that first session we're willing to meet and find out if coaching really is right for their situation. And so it could be something as simple as "Hey, Mike, I just need my kid to get organized." And we spend the time doing a backpack clean out, setting up some systems, maybe blasting some zeros, taking care of that missing work. But really the coaching really is a relationship. We don't have championship basketball teams based on one game. It's based on a season. So the longer we can meet with a student, as long as it's effective and positive and we're seeing progress, that's a conversation to have with the parents. But we've got some ways to do individual sessions. We've talked about offering some group sessions that that might be a little bit more affordable, where it's sort of almost some, we're approaching finals or approaching a UIL grading period, and I want my kid to pass so they can keep playing football. We might have a group night for a team or for a group of friends who just want to get together and get things taken care of. But all of those things are there to help train up those kids and give them those tools. And for some, they're going to latch onto it real quickly. Some may take a little bit more time, and this is not a one size fits all model. We don't have a checklist that we go through and, we tried that strategy, didn't work. Oh, well, sorry. It's really building that relationship and finding the thing that works for that child each individually. And so we've seen it work in our professional lives. We've seen the power of a community just in our own personal lives as well. So that's what we want to offer the people of San Antonio.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got my little banners ready. So this is how folks can get in touch with you. So your new venture, it's called Elite Mentors San Antonio, and you have a website up, right? Yes. So elitementors-sa.com. And what you mentioned there's some good ways that people can reach out. They can set up that free consultation. But
we've got there's a way to put in your contact information, and it will send us an email. admin@elitementorssa.com is our email address, but if you comment on our website, it will automatically link you to us. And my phone number is there as well. And you can text me, you can call me. That is there for you to use it as you need. And then, the bonus of having the two of us as co-founders, we want to find the right fit for the student. There may be someone who needs that little bit more of a mentoring piece that Andrew offers, whereas I kind of provide a little bit more of the academic side. I have the mentoring piece too, but there's just, there's two of us to choose from, and you find the person that you click with the best. And our desire is that this becomes such a positive impact on the community that we start adding in other coaches. We've got several current and former teachers and other people in ministry that we know that are like, ooh, if you ever need help, please let us know. So we've got lots of room to grow and lots of room to provide help for the families.
I just want to mention also, y'all are on Instagram, so it's at @elitementors_SA. Yes. So that's y'all's Instagram handle. So, yeah. Okay. Well, this is great. This was a great refresher for me to, I sort of thought I knew what executive function skills were, but the post is great because it, lays out a lot of specificity, like these different types of skills. It's these kind of, warning signs. It's very helpful, and I'm really excited for what you guys are setting up, and I think that it could offer a lot of benefit for students in San Antonio.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate you having us on.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, have a great evening, and thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.